The wind whispered through the tall pines, carrying with it the scent of rain and sawdust. Deep in the northern forests of Oregon, where cell signals vanished and only the echo of an axe striking wood could be heard, lived a man named Eli Turner. Eli was a lumberjack by trade, but solitude was his truest companion. For the past 5 years, he'd made his home in a log cabin he'd built himself, strong, simple, and isolated. The nearest town, Ridgehaven, was 30 miles away down a winding dirt road. Each morning, Eli rose with the dawn, chopped wood until his hands were blistered, and returned at dusk with his flannel shirt soaked in sweat. His only friend was a big Alaskan Malamute named Boone, who followed him everywhere and listened without judgment. He liked it that way. He liked the silence. Until the day it broke. It started with a faint sound, a scream. It sliced through the forest's calm, carried by the wind. Eli froze mid-swing, the axe heavy in his grip. Boone's ears perked up, a low growl rumbling in his throat. "Easy, boy," Eli muttered, but his heart thudded faster. He wasn't sure if he'd really heard it. Sometimes the forest played tricks on him. Then it came again. A cry. Distant, but real. Eli grabbed his coat and rifle and whistled for Boone. They moved quickly through the underbrush, following the sound toward the ravine that cut through the forest. Rain started to fall. Cold, sharp drops that made the leaves glisten. After half an hour of trudging through mud and ferns, he saw her. She was lying near a fallen tree, her clothes torn, her face pale and scratched. A gash ran down her leg, and one of her shoes was missing. Her eyes were open but unfocused, blinking at the gray sky. Hey, miss." Eli knelt beside her, feeling for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. Boone sniffed at her hand, whining softly. Her lips moved. "Help. Don't talk," he said, already taking off his jacket to cover her. "You're gonna be all right." He checked the area. No sign of a car, no trail of footprints except hers and some torn branches. She must have wandered deep into the forest. He lifted her carefully, her head resting against his shoulder. She was light, but her body trembled with fever. Boone trotted ahead, leading the way through the storm back toward the cabin. When they arrived, Eli set her gently on his bed and stoked the fire until the cabin filled with warmth. He cleaned her wound with what little first aid supplies he had, muttering gruffly as he worked. "You city folks never think about boots and rain." She stirred and murmured, "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said, wrapping a clean bandage around her leg. "You've got a nasty cut. You need rest." When he tried to ask her name, she only whispered, "Claire," before drifting off to sleep. For the next few days, Claire hovered between fever and exhaustion. Eli nursed her quietly, changing her bandages, feeding her broth, sitting near the fire while Boone kept watch. He learned little about her. She spoke in fragments. "My car. Off the road. I was hiking." And sometimes she said a man's name, Victor, in her sleep, followed by the word no like a cry of protest. When she finally awoke fully, her eyes were clearer. Blue-gray, sharp, intelligent. She studied the cabin walls, the firelight flickering across the rough-hewn logs. "Where am I?" she asked. "Oregon woods. Closest town's Ridgehaven," Eli said, stirring the pot on the stove. "You were lucky I found you. You'd been out there at least a night." She tried to sit up and winced. I remember arguing with someone. Then the car went off the road. I must have crawled out." Eli handed her a cup of hot tea. "Who were you with?" She hesitated, fingers trembling around the cup. "My fiancé." He raised an eyebrow. "You argue often enough to crash a car." Her eyes flickered to the fire. "He's not who I thought he was." Eli didn't press further. He'd learned long ago that people talk when they're ready. Instead, he handed her a blanket and went outside to chop wood, leaving her with Boone, who curled protectively near her feet. Over the next week, she regained her strength. She started helping. Washing dishes, feeding Boone, even mending Eli's torn shirts with careful stitches. One morning, she stepped outside for the first time. The forest looked endless, bathed in golden light. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. Eli nodded. "Most folks think it's too quiet. I used to hate quiet," she admitted. "Now it feels safe." He looked at her then, really looked. She wasn't just beautiful. She had that kind of beauty that came from struggle. There was something bruised behind her eyes, but also resilience. Days turned into weeks. Claire's laughter began to echo through the cabin, light and healing. She cooked, read Eli's old books, and sometimes coaxed him into talking about his past, a past he usually kept buried. He'd once been married, he told her, but his wife had died young. After that, he'd left the city, left everything behind. "People get too loud," he said simply. She understood that kind of escape. She'd been living a different kind of noise. Corporate meetings, cocktail parties, a life that sparkled but left her hollow. "I was engaged to Victor Langford," she said one evening as they sat by the fire. "He's a tech investor. Was. I found out he was laundering money through my company. When I confronted him, he snapped. We were driving back from our lake house, and he tried to make it look like an accident." Eli's jaw tightened. "You think he's looking for you?" "I know he is," she said. "He can't afford for anyone to find out what he's done." Eli leaned back in his chair, silent for a long time. Then he said, "Well, he won't find you here. Not unless he likes chasing wolves and trees." That night, as rain drummed against the roof, Claire found herself awake, watching the firelight flicker across Eli's sleeping form. He was rough, quiet, scarred, but safe. The kind of man who didn't play games. And for the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt in the city: peace. But peace doesn't last forever. A week later, Eli spotted tire tracks near the old logging road. Fresh ones. That evening, when he came back to the cabin, he was tense. "We've got company," he said. Claire froze. "Victor. Maybe. Could be a ranger. But we'll be careful." He loaded his rifle, just in case, and told her to stay inside. Boone barked from the doorway, tail stiff. Hours passed. The forest went still. Then, just as dusk fell, a car engine echoed faintly through the trees. Claire's face went pale. "That's his Range Rover." Before Eli could respond, headlights flickered through the trees. He grabbed her hand. "Out the back. Now." They slipped through the rear door into the darkness, Boone padding beside them. Eli led her through a hidden trail that wound behind the ridge. From there, they watched as a man stepped out of the car. Tall, expensive coat, eyes scanning the cabin. "Claire," he shouted into the night. His voice was sharp, cold. "I know you're out here. Come out and we can talk." Claire gripped Eli's arm. "He won't stop. He'll kill us both." Eli's voice was steady. "Not while I'm breathing." Victor entered the cabin, kicking the door open. Inside, the fire cast shadows on the walls, but no one was there. Moments later, Boone barked loudly, luring his attention toward the woods. That's when Eli moved. He came up behind Victor, silent as the rain. "You shouldn't have come here." Victor spun around, gun raised, but Eli was faster. The rifle cracked once, hitting the tree near Victor's shoulder. Startled, Victor dropped the gun and stumbled backward, his foot catching a root. He fell hard against the ground, mud splashing up his expensive coat. Claire stepped out from behind the trees. "It's over, Victor. The police know everything." Victor's eyes widened. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I did," she said coldly. "Before the accident. They're probably waiting for you in Ridgehaven right now." Eli kept his gun trained until he was sure the man wasn't going to move. Then he tied him with rope and radioed the ranger station on his old transceiver. By the time the authorities arrived the next morning, Victor was silent, defeated. They took him away without a word. When the forest was quiet again, Claire turned to Eli. "You saved my life twice. He shrugged. Guess we're even. You cooked. She laughed softly, tears in her eyes. You could come with me, you know. Back to the city. I could help you start over. Eli looked out at the endless trees. I started over a long time ago. Just didn't know I was waiting for company. Months later, the snow began to fall, blanketing the cabin in white. Claire didn't leave after all. She rebuilt her life there, quietly, helping Eli run a small lumber business and write about sustainable forestry for her old company's magazine, an ironic twist that made them both smile. Every morning, they'd rise together, chop wood, feed Boone, and drink coffee by the fire. Sometimes, when the wind whispered through the pines, Claire would glance at Eli and say, "You know, I used to think I needed money to feel safe." He'd smile, kissing her forehead. Guess the forest had other plans. And somewhere deep in the Oregon woods, the lonely lumberjack and the lost millionaire found what neither of them had been looking for. A home.